Want to welcome to the show. Like I said before the break, we had a debate a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was quite enjoyable for both of us, I hope. Matt DiGeronimo, he is a host on KGU AM 760 Honolulu. That's in Hawaii. And you can check him out at the Matt D, just the letter D, show.com. Of course, we'll put a link up at majority.fm. Matt, how are you?
I'm very well, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, we didn't have anything specific that we were going to debate on today's program, but is there something that you want to talk about in particular, or what?
No, I mean I'm open season, Sam. I think I don't know if you've had a trend of topics on your show recently. If there's something in the news that has sparked your interest, but it is your show. I will defer to you.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, I've got a couple ideas, but what is this whole thing? Now, somebody keeps emailing me and tweeting at me about you saying that the Nazis did a good job or something like that. Now, let's get that off the table first.
Sure. No, I didn't say the Nazis did a good job. What I said is that most evil in the world is actually performed by the hands of people who think they are doing their jobs. And in one of my shows, I mentioned that not the leaders of the Nazi movement, but the actual troops, the people on the ground. I just mentioned that they had families and they had friends and they had holidays, and in executing their jobs, they truly believed that they were just doing their jobs.
Yeah, but now surely you must think, with the folks like that maybe they're, that was sort of their classic response, right? We were just following orders, which is another way of saying I was just doing my job. But you don't think that they were making sort of the the correct moral decisions, right?
I do not. And in fact, the analogy that I used is that I think in a lot of cases like that, in fact, it was in response to the TED Talk that I saw, and her name escapes me right now, but she was a lesbian talking about coming out of the closet and how we all have closets. And she used the analogy that oftentimes we're all in the closet peering out the keyhole waiting for others to come out first. And then using that analogy, I said I thought that was very similar to the Nazi troops, that I think deep down inside they were all just waiting for someone else to make the first move, because they had to have known what they were doing is, deep down inside they had to know it was morally reprehensible.
Wait a second. Now, hold on. So let me. I don't want to get waylaid by this, but so the fear. Okay, I think I get what you're saying. That this woman was expressing the insecurity that was involved because you don't want to be exposed, because if you come out as gay, you are ostracized and whatnot. And you're saying that you think a lot of the Nazis were concerned about coming out as like, hey, we shouldn't be exterminating millions of people, and that they would be ostracized. I mean, it's a slightly different, right? I mean, because the principles that they're defending are a little, all right,
of course it's different. I wouldn't, if you haven't seen it, I just looked it up. It's Ash Beckman does a TED Talk. And she really is the first time who...
That's not the part that I find weird. The TED...
Okay.
I understand the hesitation for people coming out of the closet in certain instances, without a doubt, of course. It's I'm not sure it's analogous to someone saying, hey, we shouldn't be systematically exterminating people.
No, but hold on. I mean, I hear some giggling in the background. I was in the military, and I was involved in executing orders. And in 100 years from now, it may very well be deemed that America unnecessarily killed many Middle Eastern people without justification. And I was a participant in that.
maybe even today. But there is a difference between sort of. It's possible that war, but I think contemporaneously, even in that day and age, that there was a sense that mass slaughter of unarmed civilians was sort of fundamentally wrong.
Of course, but I would say that for either you or I to know for sure how we would have handled the situation as a Nazi grunt, knowing full well that if you stepped forward, you and your family would be killed as well. I'd like to think that I would do the right thing, but to say categorically I know that I would, I just don't.
Okay. Let's leave that there. Let's leave that there. That's
Sure.
I understand. So what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the minimum wage? I mean, what did you talk about on your show today?
Sure, that's perfect. Minimum wage.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm watching the that's quite a segue. To go the minimum wage.
It's a segue between
saying like don't be too hard on the Nazi grunts. I mean, I'm gonna to the minimum wage, but oh boy, let's do that. I mean, is that you've been talking about the minimum wage? That's later.
No. I have not been talking about the minimum wage recently.
What have you been talking about?
Recently, I talked. Yesterday, I talked about Christianity in America. Today, I talked about the art of the debate.
Well, let's not talk about the art of the debate. Let's just do one. But what's going on with Christianity in America? Are we under siege?
No, not at all.
Why aren't you Jew?
I think there are Christians who are under siege, but their Christianity is different than my Christianity. My topic was that, as I understand the Bible, Christianity is a religion of love and tolerance, and I think that the religion of Christianity has done itself no favors because if you ask non-Christians to describe Christianity, we're seeing more and more adjectives such as hypocritical, judgmental, exclusive, and that's not the Christianity that I understand or follow.
What Christians do you think are under siege? What Christianity do you think is under siege in this country? I mean, do you think that I'm curious.
I wouldn't say under siege. I would just say that there is a growing segment of the nation who perceives the right wing to be composed of a lot of Christians who would choose to legislate through the Bible in ways that are hypocritical and also religious, which are
do you think that's
contrary
inaccurate?
To our principles.
Do you think that's inaccurate? I mean, do you think that there are not whatever it is? I mean, I think, like, for instance, the Tea Party, the studies have shown that 50% of the Tea Party, at least, are self-identified fundamentalist Christians. I don't know what the segment of those want to see more God and Bible used as a template for this country. But I mean, do you think that's an inaccurate assessment?
I think it's a very fair criticism. In fact, I am a devout Christian, and I've ostracized myself from much of the Christian community. Recently, here in Hawaii, the governor held a special session to discuss same-sex marriage, and I came out very vocally to say that as a Christian, I think because we had Christians on the steps of the Capitol protesting, and I said I think you're getting it 100% incorrect. I think that if Jesus was amongst us right now, he would tell us, well, what are you doing? I mean, and further, it actually is easier for me because the Bible very clearly states that I am not the judge. So for me, it's very simple. I'm not the judge. So I think the criticism of the right is justified, and my point on that is that I just hate to see my belief, Christianity, be destroyed by people who are using it in a way that I do not believe is consistent with the faith itself.
All right. I mean, yes. So I guess we agree on that. There's you get no debate from me. I'm not sure what the point is. So you're saying basically those people who do think that there is a segment of the fundamentalist population who are trying to impose their brand of Christianity on our government is wrong. So that's good.
I think it's justified. I mean, now I do, like, I had an atheist on the show not that long ago. I do have some issue with attempts to sort of erase any religious context to anything that we do, because.
So give me an example of where that's happening.
Well, I think if I remember correctly, it's Oklahoma City where there's a statue or some monument with the Ten Commandments on it, and there was a big movement to remove that. I'm not a big supporter of removing references to Christmas, and it's not because this isn't legislation. I have no intention. I don't believe in legislating through the Bible, but on the other hand. My perspective is that, look, we have this big palette, and we're saying, look, paint any color you want. Blue, red, purple, it's all fine. And I think atheists are coming along and say, well, my purple's invisible. My color is white, so erase it all. And it's like... Do
you think that the atheists are ascendant here? I mean, in this country? I mean, honestly, do you think that's really... I get that you can find a couple of atheists who will say that, but, I mean, that's not a real...
No. I agree with you. But I do think that one of three things is happening. Either there's more of them, they're starting to speak up more, or they're getting the microphone more often. I'm not at war with atheism by any means.
I would imagine they're getting the microphone more often because it's that time of year where people like to talk about the war on Christmas. All right. Well, let's go to the minimum. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I was playing this today. This Jack Kingston clip. He's running for Senate. Let's get you. Should we play this clip for you? Have you heard this clip, Jack Kingston?
Sure.
He's a Republican running for the Senate in Georgia, and this is what he had to say about school lunches. I'm curious as to your take on this. Listen to this clip.
On the Agriculture Committee, we have jurisdiction over the school lunch. School lunch program has a 16% error rate. School lunch program is very expensive. Of course, it looks good compared to the school breakfast program that has a 25% error rate. But one of the things I've talked to the Secretary of Agriculture about, why don't you have the kids pay a dime, pay a nickel, to instill in them that there is, in fact, no such thing as a free lunch. Or maybe sweep the floor in the cafeteria. And yes, I understand that would be an administrative problem, and I understand that it would probably lose you money, but think what we would gain as a society in getting people, getting the myth out of their head that there is such thing as a free lunch.
All right. So could you hear that quote?
Well, yeah, and in parallel with that, I'm reading the article. So is he contending that the kids should sweep the floors in exchange for their free lunches?
That's right.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
All right.
I mean, that would be demeaning to the children.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't support anything.
Well, Matt, I'll tell you, I don't know what we're going to have to talk about today. All right. Well, let's go to the minimum wage then. Maybe we can find an argument there.
Sure, I think we will.
This is like I don't know, some type of.
This is a love fest.
Yeah.
Somebody posted on Twitter that I'm supposed to remind you that you're handsome.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. You're the first person today. So let's talk about this. I imagine you are not in favor of adjusting the minimum wage so that it has the same buying power as it did in 1968 relative to inflation. And I imagine you're not for raising it up to $15, which would be more consistent with increases in worker productivity. Tell me why.
Well, actually, I'll go a step further and make this more interesting. I would support eliminating the minimum wage.
And what's the theory behind that?
I believe that any minimum wage hurts the people that it's intended to help the most by creating a ceiling through which they are that it's well. Now I'm trying to be too eloquent here. I think a minimum wage hurts the people that it's trying to help.
Okay, and how so?
I think that it eliminates opportunities for people who are currently unskilled, uneducated, to obtain skills and education. So, for example, if the minimum wage was $15, and so now you could work at Burger King for $15, you may be losing out on the opportunity to work at GM or IBM or Microsoft for $5 or $3. And yes, can you live on $3 an hour? Absolutely not.
Right.
But it removes the opportunity for companies to provide a $3 per hour job, which would in turn provide people skills and opportunity to break through the ceiling of $15 an hour. If I get a $15 job at Burger King, where am I going from there?
Well, what if you get this $3 job at this factory? What do you do if you can't support your family or even afford food?
I don't know because I'm not in that situation, and I know that I will be attacked like I was last time when I brought up friends and family, so I won't do that again. But, the decision to have a family is a decision, right?
Well, wait a second. Wait. And never mind family. I don't know any single human being who can live on $3 an hour in this country anyways. I mean, obviously, we're talking about this country, right? I mean, we're talking about America.
So how many college students
but wait a second.
don't work?
You have this theory that
how many college students don't work? What percentage of them you think don't work?
Well, I think there's a significant percentage of college workers, but are you talking about while they're in college?
Well, I'm just saying, you could make the
college students can get internships, and the companies can pay them zero.
Of course they can. There's opportunity.
Hold on, wait a second. Let's back up here for a second.
College students.
Hold on. Let's back up here for a second. So your argument is that the problem with the $15 minimum wage is that you will just go as an individual. You will go work at Burger King. You will deprive yourself of the opportunity to learn something that may have a higher trajectory in terms of pay. And you will deprive yourself of that because, of course, there would be so many more opportunities if companies could just hire people for $3 an hour. And so it's stilting people's growth. Is that the argument?
It's an example of the argument. I think a better way to wrap my argument is that it makes consensual contracts, it makes some consensual contracts illegal. Meaning I can't say to someone, look,
so you just on principle,
$3 an hour.
You just on principle, this is a different argument. Now, it's really not so much that this is to the benefit of any individuals. This is really more the principle of the existence of a minimum wage infringes on the freedom of contract for two parties, one being an employer and one being an employee, to forge any contract that they want.
And as a result, my example.
Okay. So let's put the as a result aside. Let's just talk about the argument about the freedom of contract.
Sure.
Now, this is presupposing that both people enter into the contract with the same information, right? With the same...
No, I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay. So you just think that just on principle you have a problem with this?
Well, I'm just saying, I wouldn't agree that when people enter into a contract, they both have the same information.
Right.
I have no idea if they do.
Okay. So this is just an argument of freedom. So you got a problem with the 40-hour work week. You have a problem with child labor laws. You have a problem with...
I don't have a problem with child labor laws.
Well, why?
I don't think children can enter into
Well, why can't
contracts.
their parents? Why can't their parents just contract them to work? They're their guardian, legal guardian. I, as a parent of my children, I sign documents on their behalf all the time. Why? Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, why can't Now, come on. If you're going to be consistent, be consistent. If it's freedom of a contract, I am my child's guardian. At any time, I could, I sign documents on her behalf. Why can't I say I'm going to make a contract with GM to have my 8-year-old go in, work for $1.50 an hour, and I don't know what her little tiny fingers could do. Probably some things that someone with a big bulky hand couldn't do. There'd be some value there.
Well, if you're making that case, Sam, I would disagree with you. I don't think that parents have the right to enter their children into any contract just because there are instances when they can sign on their behalf. I mean, I'm for the ownership of guns. I don't think people should be able to own nuclear weapons. So, I mean, I don't think I'm being inconsistent by drawing a line.
Okay, I'm not sure what the gun thing. All right, so, but you would have a problem with the 40-hour work week, correct? What about any other labor regulations? What about like safety regulations? You can't have guys smelting iron with an open fire or whatever safety. I mean, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of regulations that make it safe for people to work at work. That's also an infringement on contract in your mind, yes?
How is that an infringement on contract?
Well, why should the government come in and impose what a business needs to do to ensure the safety of their workers? Yeah, of course it costs them extra, but I mean, why should the workers get those protections? The workers can come in and either negotiate it themselves or not take the job.
Again, if you're making that point, I disagree. I would say that I do believe that our government has overstepped its bounds in regards to regulations, but as a libertarian, I'm not anti-government.
Okay, but I'm asking, look, you're saying that the minimum wage, which is a regulation proffered by the government to ensure a minimum working standard, i.e., in this instance, it's wage, and you think this imposes on the freedom of contract, and so just on principle, we can have another argument if you think somehow it's going to be more beneficial for people to make $3 an hour at GM than it would be $15 an hour at Burger King. Let's put that aside for a moment. But you're simply saying that this is an infringement on the freedom of contract, and I'm asking you, what else do you perceive as an infringement on the freedom of contract when we have all sorts of other regulations that the government gets involved with in terms of forcing employers to do certain things? You got to post workers' rights in the hallway. You've got to make sure that people are allowed bathroom breaks, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I mean, I kind of see what you're doing, Sam, and I get it from a debate perspective, but I'm not making the case that the government should play no role in the labor force. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
So
you're just saying that they shouldn't set minimum wage. The other stuff is okay.
Rules in the hallway is one of those things that sounds good in Washington, D.C., but is just an absolute waste of money. Absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of examples of things that sound good in Washington, D.C. that just end up draining valuable resources.
And that being the minimum wage.
I do believe that the government should play a role. Now, what I'm saying is that I do not believe that role should be in regards to wages. So, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to bring this to, you're trying to get me to say anyone should be able to enter any contract with anyone, regardless of other.
So, but on what basis then do you have a problem with the minimum wage? You say it's about infringement on freedom of contract, but you say freedom of contract is okay in other areas. So, what is your basis for having a problem?
My basis is that you have the government making business decisions for businesses that they don't understand. I'm a business owner. Sam, have you ever owned a business?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in my business office right now.
Great. So, I mean, there is a certain amount of money that I can pay my employees for the value that they provide me.
Uh-huh.
And that's a decision that I, as a business owner, make. And if I cannot get that value, then I'm not going to hire them. It's just that simple.
Right.
Or I'll figure out a way. If Burger King has
Or
to
maybe
pay
your
their
business is
employees
not
$15
viable.
an hour, they're going to automate. They're going to automate a lot of what they have to do if it's a business decision.
So wait, so your argument now is that it's going to cost people jobs.
Say that again, Sam?
Your argument is it's going to cost people jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's your argument, can you point to any data that shows, and now we're back at data again, I get it, or data. Can you point to any data that supports your conclusion? Because I can cite plenty of studies that show that while it may seem intuitive that if you raise the minimum wage by, let's say, I'm only going based upon what we have in the data, but if you raise it by $4 an hour or so, that it would cut down on jobs. It turns out that's not the case at all. And I can get into the economic theory behind it, which has to do with the employers having a monopoly on labor. But what we do to study this is we study adjacent counties of different states. And when one state raises the minimum wage, according to your theory, the jobs would dry up there. And in fact, they don't.
I didn't say dry up.
Oh, they would lose jobs, and they don't. It doesn't affect the employment of people at all.
Well, I mean, Sam, if you have data to support that, then that's great. But and you're right. I did say that it would impact jobs. But I know this sounds like backpedaling, and to some extent it is. What I should have said is that it affects the quality of the jobs. A number of jobs doesn't answer the question. I mean, the minimum wage does not provide, and I don't think is intended to provide, a living wage. My data would tell you.
So what happens to those people who don't get a living wage?
I would be happy to hire unskilled, uneducated workers for $5 an hour, but I won't pay them $15 an hour. And if they work for me for $5 an hour, they would learn things that could prepare them for jobs other than the minimum wage job.
What would they do in the meantime, like when they got to eat? I mean, you said yourself it doesn't provide a living wage. What do they do in the meantime?
Well, I mean, then that's why I was trying to have the discussion about college students, meaning, like, how many college students live at home while they're going to college? You say, what do they do in the meantime? They live at home.
Wait, what? So you're saying, so you're going to hire these people, but what if someone's like, I don't know, in their 30s? What if they don't? What if their parents don't have room for them to live at home?
Well, I think most cities have shelters. I mean, we have homeless people in Honolulu, and there's shelters for them to live in.
So, in other words, government should provide homeless shelters so that people can work for you for $5 an hour.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You said, what should that person do? So in my mind, I was trying to think of this imaginary person who wants to improve their place in life and knows that a minimum wage job will never lead to anything but another minimum wage job. And if he had the opportunity to work for $5 an hour while he earned a wage, you said, what would he do? And I gave an example of perhaps if he has no friends whose couch he can't sleep on and he has no family, then he could live in a homeless shelter.
So now, and this $5 job is going to take them further because you're going to give them information that they're not going to get at the $15 hour job, but and so it's going to be a mentor program, and this is going to lead them out of the homeless shelter that they're living in. It's an interesting theory. I mean, basically, so we're subsidizing this guy to subsidize you to give them all of this. And so would you place any requirements on this? In other words, like, what if we found, let's say Matt DiGeronimo was in charge of the world, and he instituted this in America, and we went 10 years and we found, like, wow, what percentage what percentage of people who got these $5 an hour jobs and spent their time at the homeless shelters or had needed food stamps or couldn't provide a living wage and made the wrong decision to have a family, and so their kids are what percentage would show a success rate? I mean, how many of these people would have to lift themselves out of this $5 an hour job to presumably go on to have a job that's better than $15 an hour, right? So it would be $20 an hour or $35, or maybe they go on to make several $100,000 a year. What would be the percentage that would show success for this plan?
Well, first off, I think making me the king of the world is a wonderful idea. So if we want to spread that, I support that.
Okay.
But I can't answer your question. But what I would say is I think.
But you're saying that this is your theory.
But
your
you're asking
theory.
me for a percentage, Sam. So I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
But I can't just throw out a number.
All right.
What I would say is I think it would be very similar to the percentage of success that college students have. I mean, why do college students get offered better jobs than untrained and unskilled and uneducated workers? Well, why do they get $40,000 jobs?
Well, they got a 4-year college education. They also are necessarily around people who have more money, who go on to have careers as well, and they network. So you're saying that somebody getting paid $5 an hour is going to have the economic potential that is matched by going to college for 4 years. Is there anything that you can point to that would support that in any fashion whatsoever?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that college students have access to internships, and you presented that as a positive. So, I mean, I would compare it to a college internship. I mean, so you were basically telling someone you cannot offer your whatever talent you have at an amount that's being offered to you, even if you think it would result in your future growth. It's illegal. You can't do it. And I have a problem with that.
In other words, you can't work for free, and
interns work for free,
right? But I see. So
why are internships allowed? Shouldn't internships be illegal? Shouldn't we pay interns at least $15 an hour?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but we don't.
Right. Actually, the labor laws on that, I think we actually do. Unless you're getting college credit for it, you do.
If you're right, okay, then I've broken the law. I don't think that's true everywhere.
I think you better check, buddy. And I think if you want, maybe we can edit that part out because
I don't edit it out. I don't.
For the Department of Labor.
Bring them on. I'll give you my cell phone number. I don't care. I've been an unpaid intern.
Right.
You know. So, and I didn't get college credit for it.
How did you support yourself during that time?
It wasn't easy. I loaded trucks at UPS from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. every morning.
How much did they pay you?
This was back in 1992. I don't know, maybe $10 an hour.
So they paid you over the minimum wage, but that didn't prevent you from going and doing a free internship. In fact, it seems to have empowered you.
Well, I knew that loading trucks from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. would give me the opportunity to live. I lived in a small apartment with like 7 other guys.
Right.
Would give me the opportunity to earn the education that I wanted.
Right.
So
you're making $40 a day.
You're
making $40 a day. How long did you do that for?
Well, I did all sorts of odd jobs. I think the UPS job I probably did for a year.
Okay, so you've just actually argued against your own proposition. It was the fact that you were making above minimum wage at that UPS job, which allowed you to actually go and take an unpaid internship.
No, that's not true.
You just said it was. I said, how did you support yourself? You said by getting an above minimum wage job.
Yeah, no, but that's, I think you're making a leap that's not fair. I mean, if UPS paid only $5 an hour, then I would have either had to adjust my quality of living, made different decisions, or found a different job.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you would have had to get a different job that hopefully paid more than the minimum wage. But because they were subject to minimum wage requirements, at the very least, you couldn't get a $5 an hour job. And you still had that job, and that empowered you to have the unpaid internship. So why can't we just do that? Why can't that guy work the overnight at Mickey D's making $15 an hour and then come work for you for free during the day?
Well, because I don't own Mickey D's, and I don't know what their business model is, and I don't think the government has any right to tell the owner of Mickey D's, look, this is
but that's
what
not
you
your
will pay
argument
them.
anymore, though, is it?
But sure it is. It's absolutely my argument. It's that, I didn't make the decision about what UPS chose to offer for people to load their trucks, but I did make the decision to participate in it once they did.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Sam. If the government thought that clean water was such a necessity that, and there was data to suggest that tap water, blah, 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 whatever. And so if they told businesses they had to sell water for less than 50 cents a gallon, would you support that?
Wait, I'm not sure I follow. If the government thought that clean water...
But it could have been closed. They said, look, you have to offer pants that are less than $3 an hour, because $3 a pair. If the government imposed that rule, and you could apply it to any product, right? So maybe water and pants aren't the best examples, but something, whether it's electricity, clothing, food, the government said, look, you have to sell milk for less than $1 a gallon.
Well, electricity is regulated in that way, right?
I'm very well aware of that, but we also know that the bigwigs in the electricity world are in cahoots with our politicians. Okay. So it's regulated in a way that allows people to say it's regulated, but we know who's making the big money on that, right?
All right, so what's your point? Price controls, would I have a problem with price controls?
I just use an example, something that is similar in regards to social justice. So, for example, milk. If the government said you have to sell milk for less than $1 a gallon.
So you're asking, would I agree with price controls?
Well,
no,
I'm giving you a very
but not
example.
On principle, more because it just won't work.
Well, but why wouldn't it work?
Because if the price of production of milk is more than that, then you won't be able to support it.
Okay, well, if a company's expenses are more than their revenue, then they'll go out of business.
Correct.
And so why would the government think that they could evaluate the business model of the gas station on the corner?
Well, I've already told you that we can look. There's plenty of data out there of what would happen if we raised the minimum wage.
Yeah, but there's business owners that would say, look, I'll give you data. If I had to pay my employees $15 an hour, and I'm not talking about Mickey D's.
Who are you talking about?
The gas station on the corner that would say, I can't afford it. I'm out. I mean, business owners could...
So you're saying gas stations can't afford to pay $10 an hour as opposed to $7.25 an hour?
I have no idea.
No, but that's my point, Matt, is you're just making this up. You have to keep making up these scenarios.
No, it's a very simple scenario. What I'm saying is the business owner knows. Just like the business owner knows what he has to charge for a product, because he knows what will give him a profit and the ability to stay in business, he also knows what he can afford to pay people.
Yes, and why do you think that business owner is going to tell you and I?
Say that again?
Why do you think that business owner is going to tell you and I?
What do I think he's going to tell us?
Why do you think he would?
I don't think he would.
Why do you?
It's his business. It's his right.
No. I'm saying you're telling me that your made-up gas station owner knows whether or not he can afford an extra $2 or $3 an hour for his workers. And then you're presuming that he's going to come and tell Matt DiGeronimo that, yeah, I could afford it. It would eat into my profits a little bit. Some of it, maybe I'd have to pass some of the expense on to consumers. But why would he tell you that? As opposed to doing like what the restaurant industry does and simply lobby against it and say we can't afford it. And then when the minimum wage is increased, oh my God, they must have been wrong, or perhaps they were just lying.
Or they just raised the price of the food.
Right. Like we know what would happen if you raised McDonald's, if fast food restaurants were required to raise their minimum wage. We know what would happen. We know the impact it would have even if they didn't absorb any of the loss in profits, even if it was just passed on. We know exactly how much they would have to charge extra on a burger. I mean, it would be something like, I don't know, 15, 20 cents. So
wouldn't it make, look at the difference between Costco and Walmart. Costco has chosen to pay its employees much higher than Walmart. And as a consumer, I go to Costco instead of Walmart. So if you're trying to make business to make business decisions on behalf of McDonald's, I recommend that you buy McDonald's. We love to use.
Hey, right now I'm subsidizing McDonald's right now, and you are too. We're both subsidizing McDonald's right now, because the reason why those workers don't die of hunger is because something like, 40% of them are on food stamps. We're also paying for their Medicaid. In fact, McDonald's has part of their budget is to pay people to advise their own employees to go have the government pay and subsidize their business by paying for food stamps and Medicaid. And I have no problem, frankly, with the idea in general of making sure that poor people who can't afford to eat or get medicine will get that. But at the same time, you can't argue to me that this is all just McDonald's purview. I'm sorry. I'm supporting their workforce.
It sounds to me that, we shouldn't be buying anything from McDonald's. This sounds like a horrible place to buy a burger.
That's not the point here. McDonald's, Burger King, it doesn't matter. Walmart, we do the same thing with Walmart. We do the same thing with Walmart.
There's a local burger joint right around the corner from me that pays their employees $15 an hour. And I know that because my niece's friend came to live with us.
You're avoiding the point I just made.
No, it's a great point, and that's why I won't buy stuff from McDonald's.
And how much of an impact is that having?
Virtually zero.
Right. So let's get serious and talk about not what happens in the fantasy world.
Doesn't really care.
Let's get serious and not talk about what happens in the fantasy world where everybody tunes in to the AM 760 and does what Matt says. But let's talk about the real world, where these are very large corporations, and they have a market share that is not in any way going to be impacted by Matt DiGeronimo or Sam Seder not buying their product. Yet we are spending billions of dollars subsidizing them, but because of the sanctity that these guys are business owners and they know what they're doing, that even though the data shows exactly what would happen with a minimum wage increase, that somehow that's crossing the line there.
Well, okay, so you raised some good points, but hold on. The same regulations you're going to put on McDonald's. So let's just say, okay, so McDonald's owners pay everyone $15 an hour. Well, but this is like all other regulations. The big boys will be fine. But now all
right, we will
that same rule.
Give me a number. How many employees do you want to make not required?
Wait,
50 employees?
Come on.
Or less?
It's fair to let me respond to your analogy. The same regulation is now going to apply to the smaller guys. And I don't think it's fair to use McDonald's as the example.
Actually, Matt, you're wrong. You look to what happened in Chicago. They were just going to make this for anybody who had, I think, anything more than 30 or 20 employees.
Yeah, but that's a random number. How do you know that?
What do you mean, how do you know that? No, it's not a random number. You just said that there's smaller businesses are going to be, we're going to define it. We're going to define smaller businesses as 20 employees.
Who are you to define that?
Well,
what gives you or the government the right to say, oh, if you have more than 20 employees, you can afford this? You don't know that.
They have rights over commerce all the time. They have rights to regulate businesses.
But it seems like, McDonald's is such an awful place. If we exerted half the energy that we exert on trying to raise the minimum wage to make people aware of these horrible conditions in an Upton Sinclair jungle type of way, that we could put McDonald's out of business. I mean, if it's that horrible. Let's devote. No.
What are you guys smoking down in Hawaii? What do you guys got going? What do you got growing in your backyard in Hawaii, Matt?
What?
Come on. You're saying that if we didn't agitate for the minimum wage and instead we put our efforts into a boycott of McDonald's, then this would all be fine?
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say?
What I said is that I think it's a lot more effective when we employ the social conscience in a way that has nothing to do with the government, because the government doesn't know the right answer.
We've had strikes at fast food restaurants across the country.
It will inevitably be affected by special interests and large corporations.
Well, then how do you explain the efficacy of the existing minimum wage?
How do I explain the what?
The efficacy of the existing minimum wage.
I don't know what efficacy means.
It means they've adopted the minimum wage. We were able to get that. We imposed the minimum wage. There was not enough social pressure to actually get these companies to all just universally raise their wages on their own. Man, for that matter, child sweatshop labor. And the 40-hour work week.
Right, so I said in the beginning, I do believe that the government has a role, and so child sweatshops. I'm not saying to remove it. I'm just saying in the case of minimum wage, I don't think the government has the right information. And as long as no one is being forced to work in a particular place,
you don't think hunger doesn't force you to work in a particular place? Hunger doesn't force you? The need for shelter doesn't force you?
No, I said to work at a particular place.
But if there's no jobs, there's no jobs. You take the job you can get.
Okay, so now we're saying the government is responsible for producing jobs for its citizens?
Yeah.
I disagree.
Okay. All right.
The people are responsible for making jobs. I mean, I don't think that's the government's charter.
What is the government supposed to do in your mind?
What?
What is the government supposed to do in your mind?
That's a pretty broad question, Sam. I mean,
well, you just told me you don't think the government's supposed to provide jobs. In other words,
right.
A way of ensuring that people have the ability to survive, because you need a job to survive. What is the government supposed to do?
I think intervene in cases where the playing field becomes dangerous.
Dangerous?
But yeah, I mean, I'm for safety rules. I'm for children shouldn't be working in sweatshops. But I just don't think I think you're trying to bait me into different topics. I thought we're talking about minimum wage here.
You just said you don't think the government should be in the business of helping people get jobs or creating jobs for them.
That's not what I said, Sam. I said I don't think the government's responsible for creating jobs.
Okay. You don't think the government is responsible for creating jobs. What do you think the government should do? Make sure that children shouldn't work?
Just so we're clear, we're leaving this topic and moving to another topic?
No.
Okay,
because
so
to me that's intimately involved. Because for me, not only should the government be promoting the creation of jobs, not only should they actually be literally just creating jobs if it's needed, they should also be ensuring that these jobs are good enough to actually provide living wages.
Okay, and I disagree. I see no evidence of the government's ability to create quality jobs.
Well, yeah. I mean,
internet.
just about everything. I mean, aside from obviously the jobs that are created directly by the government, but you don't think things like the Great Depression, when government intervention there, like the WPA, what was that called? The
WPA.
What it was the work
The TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority.
That's another
No.
thing that created jobs.
TVA
There's
also, but the
WPA.
WPA was actually a work program. I mean, that's why I was trying to get the W out there as work. They have jobs programs all the time. When government spends money, it creates jobs. Are you not aware of this? You served in the Air Force! What did you do in the Air Force, Matt?
Well, I wasn't in the Air Force.
Where were you? In the military, right?
Yeah, I was a Navy guy.
Okay. Who do you think created that job?
Right. So, I mean, Sam, come on. I mean, like, I think you're stretching a little bit.
What? What am I stretching?
Because I do believe that the government should provide defense for the nation, and obviously it has to pay people to do that.
Right. And if the government
Employ
also
them.
provides, you also think they should provide roads too, don't you?
Now we're going to talk about Somalia next too, Sam. I mean, like...
No, just answer my question. Do you think the government should also provide roads?
Well, I think that's a decision that should be made at a local level, not a federal level.
Do you think the
And I think
local
the
government
same
should
I think
provide
the same
jobs?
people-
Do you think
I
the
think
local
same-
government should provide roads?
I think the same people...
Let me ask you, just to answer my question. You know why you won't answer it, Matt? Because you realize...
I am trying to answer it, but you're interrupting me.
Okay. Do you think the local
think-
government should provide roads?
Well, I think it depends on the particular economy, but I do believe that the same people that build buildings are very capable of building roads.
Who's going to pay for
They
that?
would do a better job
Who's
of it
going to
than
pay
the
for those
government
roads?
does. What's that?
Who's going to pay for those roads in that town?
Well, they have to, it will either be the taxpayers.
Okay, so wait a second. Who do the taxpayers pay? Do they just going to go and everybody's going to give their taxes to Jones Construction? Here, I think you've got 18 cents of my taxes due. Here they are. Or who are they going to pay it to? Who are they paying their taxes to?
No. I mean, so hold on.
No, because we need to get really remedial
if the
here,
land
Matt,
is owned by the government, which land is owned by the government, and they choose to put roads on that land, then they have a decision. They can either create jobs like most municipalities do,
Wait,
and have
so
those
wait, the municipalities are creating jobs, right?
Or they can hire a contractor.
Okay, the municipal, but the contractor hires people to do the government job. That creates jobs, right? Or the municipality, as you call it, the city government, can have a Department of Public Works or a highway commission or a roads department, and they can hire jobs. So there's the government jobs. And now let's say town A needs to connect to town B. Whose responsibility is that? Well, maybe it's the county. But what if the county A wants to connect to county B? Maybe that's the state government. And what if states want to connect to other states? Well, that's the federal government. But what if the state and the county and the city don't have the full resources to provide these things? Then the federal government will give them money. They will hire either the city workers or county workers or state workers, or they will subcontract it out to the Jones Construction Company, who will hire people. Thus, more jobs created. And that's just when it comes to roads, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, so first off, I said that the government's not very good at creating jobs. If you give the government $1 billion, they will use that money to create jobs. Like, I can't dispute that, right? So we give the money. You
did about 5-10 minutes ago, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, right? But right. I think you twisted my words, or I didn't express them very well.
No, I
because
think
of course, if we give all our money to the government, and not all our money, you give the government a certain amount of money, they can create jobs, but they're not particularly good at it. Now, remember, if you didn't give the government that money, it's not like we burn that money and throw it into the ocean. I'm saying $100 in the private sector will create more and better jobs than $100 spent by the government in an attempt to do the same thing.
Well, then let me ask you this. Why, when we're at a time of near unprecedented low levels of taxation, going back since like the 40s, let's say, why is it that we are not seeing even better private job growth? I mean, we have good private job growth. Most of the jobs that we're missing right now are actually government jobs. We're way off of pace where we would have been under Reagan or Bush 1 or Bush 2 or Clinton in terms of government jobs. But why is that? Explain that to me. When we have all
why are the rich getting rich and the poor getting poor?
No, I'm not talking about inequality. I'm just talking about taxes for the entire population.
Okay,
everybody is at their lowest
point
I don't think since you or I have been alive.
Right. I'm sorry?
Taxes.
Right. So first off, I don't think it's a one variable situation. However, I will answer your question. I think the reason that we're seeing that is because of the increase in regulations and the increase of government involvement in commerce.
There has been, under the Obama administration, cuts in regulation. We have less regulation now than we did under Bush.
Okay, so you're $1 billion.
We've deregulated the airline industry. We have deregulated.
We're talking minuscule changes here. My point is that I believe that we've allowed a situation to develop where the most powerful companies go to cocktail parties with both the Democrats and the Republicans. And when regulations are written, we invite the leaders and the heads of those industries to participate in writing the regulation. And I think as a consequence, it sounds good and it plays good, but it has put more barriers to small businesses to grow, to compete with these big businesses, because they can't afford or they can't get across the moat that these big businesses can. McDonald's will survive if you increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but that's not my concern. My concern is the government making decisions that's going to impact a person's ability to create a business and hire workers at a wage that allows him to stay in business. And I don't think the government has the capability of making that decision for small business owners.
Okay, so what is a small business?
I'm sorry?
What's a small business in your mind? You keep saying small business. What's a small business?
Well, I mean, by the government's definition, it's a company with less than 500 employees. I mean, what I'm suggesting in the context of my argument was companies that aren't invited. You're a small business if you're not invited to the Washington, D.C. cocktail parties.
That's not a terribly reliable barometer. I mean, can you give me a sense of what... I mean, you keep saying small business. Surely you don't really believe the definition of a small business is whether or not you're invited to Washington cocktail parties.
Fair enough, Sam. But I don't claim to be smart enough to be able to define, like, if you're above a certain number of employees, you're no longer a small business. Or if you're above a certain revenue, you're no longer a small business. I think, it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. We know what small businesses are.
No, I'm asking. You're right. The SBA considers, companies that have more than 500 employees or less than to be small businesses. But what what do you think it should be? I mean, who is not being invited to these parties? My point is that there are people who are smarter than you, and let's let them figure it out.
I'm not invited. You're not invited.
Yeah. Okay. So let's let smarter people figure it out.
And who would that be?
Well, I don't know. I know there are smarter people who
can
figure this out.
Me too.
And they look at the data.
Well, first off, I don't see what the benefit of defining a small business is. And second off, the people right now who make those decisions are the big businesses, because they're the ones that have the most influence over the political process.
Yes,
because of their contributions to
let's fight
these
them, and let's
elect.
agree to do this, okay? Any business that has more than, will you agree with me? Any business that employs more than 1,000 people nationwide should have to pay a minimum wage.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, Matt, I appreciate the time today. We've been on for a long time.
It was good. It was a good talk, Sam. I really, I tell you, I calmed down a little bit from last time.
Yeah, I thought you did.
And I think that contributed. I did get a little bit off the handle last time, and I owe you an apology.
That's
for that.
okay.
I'll accept one as well, Matt.
That's it.
No, whoever that knucklehead in the background owes.
Whoa! All right. Well, listen, Matt, I appreciate it.
I only owe Sam an apology.
There you go.
All
right.
Only
air-based
All
apologies.
right, Matt.
No
Well,
Twitter
you have a
apologies.
great Christmas if that's what you celebrate. And you do. You told me you were Christian. And New Year's if you celebrate New Year's at this time. So have a great holiday season.
Maybe Hanukkah, not so much.
Yeah. All right, but we'll see.
You too, Sam. Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Wow, that was long. Shank Steele, dig down. He was trying in the German economy to the people following orders. He was tying in the German economy. Oh, all right. I'm not gonna. Oh my God, that was brutal.
That was so bizarre.
I have to say,
Listen, Sam. I only brought up Nazis because I listened to a TED Talk from a lesbian.
I think there's a lot of us, when you're watching a lesbian TED Talk, you think to yourself, huh.
It's just like what the Nazis went
This makes
through.
me put Goebbels in a different light.